Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TheBearShareShow. This is your host, Andre Matoyer. And today I am going to talk about a topic that we don't talk about often enough. And joining me is the really awesome Mr. Phil Fote. Phil, how are you doing today?
Hey, Andre, I'm doing good.
Awesome. And the topic today is on organ health. And not just the organs that we think of, like your brain or your heart, but those other organs that are really, really important for us to live, like our liver, pancreas, kidneys. We know that they're important, but we don't really talk enough about them. And a lot of gays do a lot of stuff to their body, and maybe we need to think a little bit harder about those choices. And so Phil wanted to come along to talk about his experience because I know that organ health has been a big part of your life, Phil. And I appreciate you coming on the show to talk about it with me. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I know that we've known each other on social media,
hmm
and that you have a husband or a
hmm
long-term boyfriend, right?
Yeah, he's
Okay,
we are married. Yes.
awesome. Yes. And I know that he was the one that was experiencing some organ health, and that's sort of what got you just more educated and informed about the situation of why organs are so important. So, if you could take a moment and explain like how this, why this is so important to you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, my husband's name is Ron, and we've been together for 23 years. So
It's amazing.
a long time. We got married officially, kind of,
Yeah.
after Prop 8, so was
Oh
done. So
wow.
yeah, so we've been officially married for a while now. Um, and we're at this point we're in our kind of mid 40s. A couple years ago, about 3 years ago, he got really sick and kind of like a started out like a bad flu, and
Okay.
then just wasn't getting any better and started to have some really kind of worrying symptoms like shortness of breath and really intense fatigue and stuff like that. So we went, kind of wound up in the ER, and we're told, kind of just sitting there in the ER, that he was in kidney failure and would have to start dialysis immediately.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the particular ER doctor wasn't very, personable and didn't have a very good bedside manner. So he just sort of said it, just told us to our face and just walked away.
Like you're on
So
dialysis, just this deal with it.
yeah,
Thanks.
FYI, right? Yeah.
My
um,
God.
un- Really, really total shock to the system. Um, so fast forward, we had a week in the hospital, several days in the ICU, getting stable. Now, our how we live our life is that up to 3 days a week, we have to go to the dialysis center for 4 hours at a time of treatment, where his blood is cycled through a filter and back into his body to keep him alive. And
Wow.
it keeps him alive, but let me tell you, it is not fun.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun about it. And part of this experience and kind of coming to terms with it and dealing with it is that I want to talk to people, as many people as I can, so that they don't have to go through this,
Yeah.
right? If there's a way to avoid it.
Absolutely. And I thank you again for doing that, and
hmm
give my support to Ron. I hope he's doing okay.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so obviously that's scary, and a lot of people that could be listening, just maybe they're like, all right, well, what do I need to look out for, or
hmm
why is it so important? So, what would be some knowledge that you would like to share about health when it comes to some of your other organs?
Um, Something that people should be aware of is that about a third of the population of the United States, so that's about 37 million people, are
That's a
at
lot.
risk of kidney disease. Yeah, it's a high number, high percentage. And maybe the more alarming thing is that 90% of the people that do have kidney disease progressing don't know that they have it. They're not aware of that they have it until it's too
Really?
late. Yeah, it's too late. They're sick, and they wind up needing dialysis and transplant. So again, this is another reason I'm kind of out talking about this stuff. I'm no doctor. I
Yeah.
defer all medical advice to medical professionals, doctors, and trained people. But I think there's some things that people can be aware of and do to kind of avoid an outcome like that.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's elaborate on that. So, what
Mhm.
can people do to pay attention? Like, how can they better support the organs and, you know, like, what are some warning signs that they can look out for when it comes to their organ health?
Yeah, a lot of times with organ health, you can be unaware of it because a lot of times the warning signs are either non-existent, right? Like you
Yeah.
might feel fine one day and horrible the next, or they can be very subtle, right?
Okay.
So something you need to do, like one of the first things I always recommend people do is um, take care of your health in general, and one of the big things you can do for that, regardless of your age, is have a really good working relationship with a primary care doctor.
Okay.
I think a lot of people in the United States, just the way our healthcare is set up, and it's rather
Yeah.
difficult to access. It can be time consuming and
Expensive.
expensive and
Yeah.
yeah, expensive, confusing, complicated, all that stuff. But one thing you can do is, if you at all possibly can, find a good primary care doctor that you can have a open dialogue with,
Yeah.
and ask all kinds of questions, and they'll give you responses, and you trust them.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
yeah,
that's huge. That's super important. And then
yeah,
when you're with the doctor, there's like specific tests that you recommend, or like, how would
yeah.
I know? Because that scares
I
me.
mean, typically, right. Typically, sometimes on your yearly checkup, if you are, assuming you're going to your yearly checkup, which you should,
Yeah.
they'll do like a blood test, maybe a urine test, or one or the other. And what you want to make sure is just ask your doctor. Hey, I want to make sure that my kidneys are all good, and
Yeah.
they might need to order like an extra blood test or an extra urine test, or like both. That's how they determine. They'll do a blood test and they'll do a urine test, and then they kind of put the results together and they determine how your kidneys are functioning.
Mhm.
And they can tell you, like, hey, you're at 80%, 90% functionality. You're good for your age, or oh, hey, we see some decreased functionality here. And if that's the case, fear not, because there are interventions you can do early on. There's medications you can take. There's lifestyle changes you can make
Yeah.
that can really extend the life of your kidneys and your liver and your pancreas, so that you don't run into that situation of later down the road,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's huge. I mean, so I go into my doctor about once every 3 months just for my like prep follow up, and I
Mm-hmm.
always just tell my doctor like run everything. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
they're like, okay, and they do it. And
Yeah,
so that helps. And I do get my liver enzymes checked and my kidney functions checked,
yeah,
and so far no red flags, which has been which has been good. But yeah, like I think it helps that I go to a doctor who's like gay friendly and they know, how to, they know some of the things that we're going to ask, and
yeah.
that's really nice.
And with
So
and with prep, they're definitely checking that. They're checking on those things, because that
yeah,
is kind of a possible side effect. But if you don't happen to be on prep,
true.
go ahead and ask your doctor about it. And if they push back and they're like, "Well, why? Why do you want to know about your kidneys?" Just say, "Hey, I'm become aware of this. I don't want to, I want to avoid a bad outcome." They might ask you about your family history. Like, do you have a
Hmm.
family history of kidney issues? If you do, certainly that's another reason to pay attention to
Yeah,
it. It can be genetically influenced, so you know, be aware.
yeah. Be aware. I totally agree. So are there other ways that you can sort of be on the lookout for it? I know you were saying that, some of the signs can be subtle. Like, so if you're not at the doctor's office, what are some ways that you can maybe pay attention to on your own?
Yeah, it can be very subtle, but like if you have changes in your any kind of like changes you notice that don't seem to be what you're used to, like if you are urinating less in terms of volume and frequency, if
Yeah.
you have kind of skin color changes, if you notice kind of like random swelling in different joints, or maybe your feet or something, if you're prone to gouty, like gout attacks, things like that, swelling joints, painful joints, things like that. These are all kind of your body giving you signals that something's different, something's changing.
Hmm.
You might want to investigate a little bit at that
Absolutely.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have no problem going to a doctor. I know, like you were mentioning earlier, culturally, for some reason, some people don't want to. But I like going back to your first point. I think it's huge
Hmm.
because usually when I get some of those signs, my first thing is to go on WebMD, and then I start freaking myself out that I have all
Ooh,
sorts of
yeah.
things. I know,
Try not to. Don't do Doctor Google. Doctor
right?
Google is not, not your
Exactly.
friend.
I know. But hey, like you said, find a good doctor, and then you
Yeah.
can feel comforted. Um, So again, like, we normally talk about organ health, like our brain and our heart and some of those big
Hmm.
organs, but you are having experience like with the liver and kidneys.
Hmm.
As we know, right? Like in the bear scene and the gay scene in general, there's a lot of guys that do a lot of party drugs, and drugs are filtered out through the liver and kidneys.
Hmm.
So, what is your take on that, or what can be your advice when it comes to those things?
What I would say is, look, people are going to do a certain amount of what they're going to do anyway,
Yeah,
right? And it really doesn't do anybody any good to shame anybody. However, having more information going into making those decisions, I think is always a good thing, right?
yeah,
So knowing the fact that your organs, your internal organs have a finite lifespan, and what they work to do, what they function as, is they work to keep your body in equilibrium. And whatever you put in your body, whether it's food, whether it's party drugs, whatever,
yeah,
you're knocking your body out of equilibrium, and your organs have to work much harder, whether that's filtering your blood or producing different levels of hormones or whatever you're doing, um, to kind of get your body back into equilibrium. They're going to work
right,
extra hard. So if you do choose to do that, maybe you want to be a little more mindful if you have a genetic predisposition, or if you know that your
hmm,
kidneys are already like a little bit on the weaker side. Maybe you want to be aware of that, and maybe you modulate your decisions based on that, right? Maybe
right,
you take a break from partying, don't do it so often. Maybe you go a little lighter on the alcohol, or whatever works best for your lifestyle.
yeah,
But you can modulate your behavior if you have more information and more knowledge.
absolutely, yeah. And I was going to say, it's not just the drugs too. There's a lot of alcoholism and that sort of stuff that
Yeah,
go into
unfortunately.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that as well, I talked about this a few episodes ago, that there is unfortunately a lot of gays that not necessarily party drugs, but they might do like testosterone or steroids to help maybe with some of their body goals, right? Um,
Right.
what do you think about that, or how do you know how well that affects your kidneys or liver?
Well, yeah, the kidneys, people always sort of think of the kidneys and the liver as kind of these filters, right? That
Hmm.
filter waste out of your blood, and they do that. But another thing that the kidneys do that some people aren't aware of is they are also part of your endocrine system, and so they produce hormones, and they produce some really important hormones. Like the only testosterone and estrogen are not the only hormones in the human body. There are
Okay.
hormones that help you to produce red blood cells, which are vital, right? So again, when you're doing test or tren or any of these things, right, you're knocking your endocrine system out of balance, and your kidneys are going to have to work to right that balance. So again, yeah, your liver and your kidneys, you're going to put stress and strain on that, in putting those substances in your body. The other thing, like with the gym lifestyle, which kind of people don't realize, is some of the gym lifestyle stuff revolves around ingesting a lot of protein, like massive, massive amounts of
Yeah.
protein.
Got to get swole,
And
bro.
yeah, right. Yeah, we get into the bro science part where it's
Right.
like, the dude at the gym that has like an amazing body says, "Hey, bro, you got to do like 50 grams of protein in this giant shake." And it's like, at some point, like if you're not like an Olympic level athlete, your body is just not going to use that protein.
Right.
And the kidneys play a direct role in filtering that additional overload of protein out of your body, and it stresses them. And one of the first things that you start to do as you kind of progress in with kidney disease is you actually move to eating a low protein diet, for some people in the progression of the disease, to
That's crazy.
preserve the kidney function. So it's like, you might want to go easy on the bro science again. Talk to
Mhm.
like people that are, trained, personal trainers that actually have education and training in this stuff,
Sure.
nutritionists that actually have education and training in this stuff, and let them know what kind of training you're doing. If
Sure.
you're, like I said, if you're like training to be a competitive athlete, your needs are going to be very different than if you're a guy training to look good look good with your clothes off that goes to the gym three or four times a week, right?
Right.
Your needs
Yeah.
are going to be very, very different, and you should kind of just take that into account.
Absolutely. I think that's smart too. It's not just listening to other people. You have to be smarter than that. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
so we talked a little bit about the liver and kidneys now. There's a lot of people that say, well, that's fine. Like you can live with two kidneys, and doesn't the liver like regenerate? So, what's your take on that? So, as far as like, the kidney situation.
Well, the kidney situation is that a healthy person can live with a single kidney.
Yep,
And lobes of the liver is a very unique organ, and that it can um, kind of grow back if you
it's
do something
crazy.
like a transplant, right?
Yeah,
So we get into like, well, what happens, right? If you do have kidney disease or liver failure, what happens then? And the answer is transplant. A person can donate a kidney, a living person can donate a kidney and live a perfectly normal, happy, same length, same quality of life, not have to do any drastic restrictions on anything, any aspect of their lifestyle with a single kidney. So that's something to kind of ponder, I think, for
that's
folks.
that's interesting.
Mhm.
So, what can they do, like with that extra kidney?
Well, if you choose to donate, what you're really doing is you're becoming. If you choose to be a living donor, you're becoming a really an angel to someone. It is a big decision, but you're really saving a person's life. You could be becoming part of their family. Now, the other thing you can do, which is very easy, and I really encourage everybody to do this, is be a deceased donor, right?
Okay.
Fill out. You can go online to organdonor.gov website and sign up to be an organ donor in your state. In like the sign up process is super easy. It's like 5 minutes, right? You
Yeah.
can also do it when you renew your driver's license or change of address on your driver's license.
Yep.
um,
That's what I did, and I
it's
think it's
yeah,
super easy. Just check a box, and then there you
yep,
go. You know.
yeah, totally. And the next step of that, though, if you do choose to be a deceased donor, is I do encourage you to have a discussion with your loved ones about your desire to do that and your choice to do that, because what will happen through that process is if something, God forbid, untoward happens and you pass away, your next of kin will be approached rather shortly after the event, and by a representative from the hospital. Um, Actually, an organ donor organization will approach them and ask and say, hey, you've signed up to be an organ donor. May we proceed with that process? And your loved ones will be in a state of shock. They'll be emotional. they'll they may have like a knee jerk reflex reaction to say no, I don't want you to touch
Yeah.
anything on his body or anything at that moment. But if you've made your if you've made your wishes known to
Yeah.
them, they're much more likely to say, "Oh yeah, we talked about this with him, and I know it's important. It was important to him or her, and yeah, you can proceed, with that." And a single deceased donor can make the difference in the life of up to 8 living people, and
That's crazy. Just from one person?
it's yes, it's such a
Wow.
legacy to leave. If something, again, God forbid, we all want to stay here as long as we can, but
Yeah.
it is such a great legacy to leave if that does happen.
Well, I know that people always romanticize like, oh, like, you're the living donor, like you
Hmm.
donate to someone, you're the hero, and that's awesome. But when I learned, and I learned this a while ago, that you can donate when you're deceased, I was like,
Hmm.
oh, like I don't need them, like why not? I think that's huge. And I don't think enough people
Yeah.
realize that, what that box means on that form, or just quickly
Yeah.
donating, like how many, like 8 people just from you, like that's crazy. That's amazing. I think that's
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
important. um
Yeah.
so, like, do you know anyone who has done any live, like, transplants, like the live version?
Yeah, like just kind of in the news as far as public figures. Someone that may be known to the bear community is Pennsylvania State Representative Brian Sims, right?
Yum.
He actually became a I know. I mean, he's a civil rights attorney, he's in
I know.
government, and he's gorgeous, and he's a kidney donor. I mean, how many more great things can this guy do, right?
He's an angel.
Um, Indeed, and he walks among us. But
Yes.
he wound up, he donated a kidney to someone that was just like a constituent, a friend, like someone he knew in his neighborhood that was in kidney failure, and he was a living donor. He didn't really expect it to become public. It wasn't like a press release or anything. It kind of
Sure.
came out in the course of like the COVID pandemic and some weird shenanigans that kind of went in government up in Pennsylvania, and it kind of came out un, un you know un unbidden. But yeah, and he's just living a perfectly normal life thereafter, and he's friends with his donor, the recipient, and
Hmm.
his husband, and they live a great life. And um, some folks that are in the kidney community that people may not be aware of is like the comedian George Lopez, right? He was a recipient of a
Oh,
donated
okay.
kidney.
Wow.
Selena Gomez as well, right? Selena Gomez was a recipient. Someone who's
I had
very
no
young,
idea. Yeah, I had no idea.
yeah, needed a
Yeah.
kidney transplant and had a living donor step up.
Wow.
So
Wow.
um, it's definitely prevalent out there.
Yes. And I think, whether you're living or deceased, donating helps a lot. I think that's huge. Um,
Yeah, and we really need to get the word out because a lot of people are in favor of organ donation, like have a really positive opinion of it and like what we're talking about. Like 90+% of the population really believes in it. That it's a great thing, right? That science
yeah.
has given us. But remember that checking the box signing up that I mentioned, only 40% of people that are in favor of it have actually signed up. And that sounds like so low. It's like, hey, if we're all in favor of this, if we all believe in this, let's
Let's
make
do
sure
it.
to check the box. Let's
Yeah,
make sure to make it happen.
absolutely. And where do you go again to sign up if you wanted to just sign up today?
Organdonor.gov on the web is
Okay.
an easy spot. You can also do it actually on your iPhone.
Oh,
It's
wow.
super easy, or you can do it through like your DMV. If you have like relocated or moved states or something like that, you probably need to do it again.
Sure.
So if you have like made a change of where you live, go ahead
Right.
and do it
Absolutely.
again.
Well, this is awesome. Again, I think not enough gays are talking about this, and I really appreciate your knowledge and expertise on it. If you can just tell the audience some, like a big takeaway that you would like them to know about organ health, what would that be?
Sure. It sounds kind of cliche, but like lead a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah,
Have a good relationship with your doctor. Obey your doctor, right? Like if they give you meds, if they give you a med for high cholesterol, or if they give you a med
yeah,
for high blood pressure or a CPAP or something, take it. Like go with the treatment, work the treatment with them. If something about it you don't like, talk to them about it. Have an open dialogue with them. Take into consideration what you're doing to your body. Like avoid bro science. Don't do Dr. Google.
yeah.
Go to the health professionals. And then the other thing I would add is just hey, think about donation. As gay
Hmm.
people, we often have different relationships with our families than traditional, potentially.
Yeah,
We may be less likely to have biological kids. There may be different circumstances for us. So I really think we should take care of each other and really, really consider donation if you can.
absolutely. Um, and final thought, what would you hope to see for the future of the bear and the LGBTQIA communities?
I mean, I want to see us all be healthy, right? I want to
Yeah,
see us all take care of ourselves and take care of each other, right? And be kind to each other. And when inevitably the bad stuff does happen, because let me tell you, we're all getting older, and eventually
hmm,
we'll need a doctor, we'll have something go on. Take care of each other,
yeah,
support each other, no judgment on anything, just be there for each other. That's what I want
absolutely.
to see.
Absolutely. And I forgot to mention too, like with the steroid stuff, like it's not just the
Mhm.
organs and liver, but also like your testicles too, right? Like there's,
Oh
just
yeah.
being aware of that aspect. So
Hmm.
just hopefully just, we're being smarter and being more aware of these things. And again, like having these conversations that we don't have enough of is massive and it's huge. Um, well, thank you so much, Phil, for taking the time out of your day and talking to me about this. For those listening, I hope this is something that you guys can identify with, and I hope that we can have more conversations about this stuff with our friends. So, thank you so much for taking the time today, Phil.
Thank you, Andre. I really appreciate you making the offer and using your platform. Love all that you do. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening again to another episode of The Bear Share Show. If you like The Bear Share Show, please follow and subscribe. And you can listen to The Bear Share Show on pretty much anywhere that you listen to your podcast. So, Apple Music, Google Playlist. You can also listen to it on Apple Music, Facebook, and YouTube. So, pretty much anywhere. Thank you for another episode and look forward to the next one. Thanks, everyone.